Okay, so I was I was diagnosed in 2015 when I was 24 with endometriosis, and then in the lead up, the reason I pursued a diagnosis is I was living with pain for pelvic pain, period pain, all sorts of pain for probably like 10-ish years, maybe a little less than 10 years. And I had gone to a few general practice doctors, and they've told me that, the classic endometriosis story. Oh, it's normal for you being a teenage woman to have period pain, back pain. It's all part of that's all part of the female experience. So get over it. So I just kind of got used to being told that that's normal, and then you think, oh well, these are doctors, so that must be true. So I trust, you learn to trust the opinion of someone who's educated. So I just went on my merry way and dealt with being in pain all the time. But in 2014, it became a problem so bad that I could no longer kind of convince myself that it wasn't a problem. So I was traveling in Europe, and I was in France at the time. Was with my partner at the time, and I had a miscarriage in a French bathroom, and that was about 1 month before our holiday was going to end, and I just didn't stop bleeding. Like I just and profusely, and I was also incredibly bloated. I looked like I was 6 months pregnant, and I was just in so much pain too. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk. Also, I had to keep running to the bathroom just to expel. So it was awful. I couldn't really exist, and I came home from the holiday, still hadn't stopped bleeding, still hadn't stopped being in crazy amounts of pain. So decided that no, okay, there's something wrong. No, you can't tell me there's nothing wrong. So went to a gynecologist. I had my first surgery and got diagnosed with endo in 2015. And from there, had a bit of I had a very, very hard time dealing with the diagnosis. People are all different, right? But I went into this very like selfish, that can't happen to me. I have so many dreams. I have so much to do. I don't have time for this shit. So mentally I couldn't really get around it. And I think that actually my mental attitude really affected how I physically dealt with the problem. So I was very, very sick for a long time after the surgery. Eventually I rallied and I got back up, and I was like, no, this is crap. I'm not just going to resign. I'm going to continue doing what I want to do with my life. This is just something I have to manage along the way. So I started developing my work, and my career got more successful, and everything was going great. And then I had in 2017 I had this bout of just not being able to get up out of bed, and the pain that I was experiencing was like extraordinary, nothing like I'd ever felt before. And I kind of felt like I had a bladder infection, but I don't know. I just thought that by that time it'd been such a long time of feeling that way that it didn't really register. I just thought that that's what my life was like now. But eventually I actually legit couldn't move, so I called an ambulance. I went to the hospital, and later got treated and diagnosed with sepsis. So what happened was I'd become so accustomed to daily pain that I didn't even notice that I had a bladder infection, which had spread to my kidney, which had then spread to my blood. So then I effectively had poisoned blood, and my body was just like, nah, I'm shutting down now. So I was in a very what's the word? I was in a very dangerous position there, and sepsis is really scary. So anyway, I got through that, but then a week later, I went to see my surgeon to tell her that this is what happened. What's with the pain before that? Because I know you can have an infection, let it go awry, and that can happen. But my question was, why didn't I notice? Because why was I in so much pain? My surgeon said, yeah, you're right, there's something wrong here, and booked me in for urgent surgery. And this is when I was diagnosed with adenomyosis as well, which is endo's angry cousin. So endometriosis is outside of the uterus, adenomyosis within the uterus walls, kind of similar. But anyway, so that's been my journey. But since then, I had the IUD. Is that what it's called? Yeah, the little triangle thing put in my uterus, the Marina, and that's been fantastic for me. Life-changing procedure for me. It has slowed my disease right down. It keeps both of them under control. They do still get affected or impacted every day by the diseases. Sometimes, it's frustrating. I'm a very hard worker, but when you have a condition like that, you don't get to choose when you can work and when you can't. And so I'm a scheduler as well. I'm a Capricorn, so I plan a lot. But my plans do go off the rails a lot of the time because the disease says no. So it affects me in that way. And also sleeping, walking, standing, sitting, all very painful things, and you sort of develop little coping mechanisms, and mine is like leaning on stuff or sleeping in a funny way, but then that affects your back, and so it just has this chain event thing when you have chronic pain to deal with. So there's always something to deal with. So I'm at doctors all the time. Financially, it's crippled me. So it has held me back in some ways, but also it has taught me to be a more mature person. I'm much more understanding of other people's situations, because you don't really go through life thinking that this is going to happen to you, and then it does, and then it opens up this whole different world of people and situations that you never even knew. Well, you kind of knew they existed, but you just didn't even look into it. You didn't care to understand. You're going along living your privileged life, and now I see things more clearly, and it's also I think trickled into other aspects of life and community where I have a greater understanding of all people. Not all people. I don't understand everyone, but I try to, and that's the difference. So that's a really good thing that's happened to me as a result of having this chronic condition. And I think that a lot of my story could have been quite different, and that annoys me a little bit. And how I think it could have been different is I think if there was better education for general practice doctors on endometriosis, then there would be a point 8 years ago where I would have already figured all this out. and didn't have to experience quite so much pain, because my doctor, I've had several doctors too. I go through them because they don't, they're not taught about it, so they don't know, so they don't think it's a thing. So I found one that I really liked, but he did say to me, he's very transparent and amazing, and he was like, yeah, we in med school we call this the mimicking condition, because no one understands it. It's just a condition that mimics a bunch of other conditions, and so it was the most confusing, one of the most confusing diseases to get their head around as in med school, and still they don't quite understand it. And he was saying, I would love to understand it, I'm going to read more about it, and that's what a great doctor is. But it would be epic if I didn't have to teach my doctor about it. Yeah, so that's me, that's my experience. I just want to also say that it's not, in a time like this, in Endo Awareness Month, it can be slightly, when I first went through the diagnosis process, when I just got my diagnosis, I found it dejecting, because all I heard were people talking about their crappy experiences, and I just felt like, well, I've got no hope, this is my future, and that I found that terrifying. Actually made it more difficult for me to wrap my mind around. But I would just like to say that the reason that we talk about the terrible side is just to make an impact, and also it's working. So in my country, our health minister, I think it was last year or the year before, pledged, I don't know how many millions of dollars, many millions of dollars, to endo research. And that is because of the groundswell that people, like all the people that are sharing their stories this March, that's because of them. And so that's why it's really important. But also, please don't lose hope hearing these terrible stories, because we're just carving the path for you to have a better experience. And things are changing, research is happening, things are getting better, but we just gotta keep pushing.